Good morning, Ohio. James Ernest of the Grueling Truth Radio Network here with Richard Holliday, star of MLW Wrestling. Richard, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be on.
So what was life like growing up in Connecticut?
Connecticut is very rich and aristocratic and by the water and everything that people think that Connecticut is, right? But no, I grew up in New Haven, which is definitely a intricate part of Connecticut, very diverse. This is where Yale is. Yale's campus is within New Haven, and there's quite a reputation, quite a history in New Haven, especially with professional wrestling. But it was awesome growing up here.
So, growing up with the Blue Bloods and the Elites, is that kind of how you spent your childhood?
For the most part.
Excellent.
Of course.
So, what sports did you play growing up?
Growing up, I played everything. I gravitated towards football. That's where I ended up playing college football. But all sports they've always been a part of my life. It's helped me easily transition into professional wrestling.
So, who did you play for in college?
I played for the University of New Haven, actually.
Oh, nice. And the way I understand it, even though it kind of seems odd because you seem so athletic, you were a lineman?
I was quite bigger back in the day, and that's the requirement of being an offensive lineman, especially at the level that I played at, which was University of New Haven Division II football. But a very short while where I realized that I just didn't want to hold this weight. I didn't want to look like this. And I knew where the goal was. It was to be a professional wrestler. So it was a very easy decision to say, well, I'm going to hang up the cleats, put on the boots, and slim down.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on your in-ring character, shoot, and then just how you're built, I would have guessed wide receiver, tight end, that kind of thing, but used to be a lineman, so definitely a metamorphosis, a big change you've went through.
For sure. Wide receiver is a bit of a stretch. They're a lot thinner. They're around 180 pounds. I walk around now around 235, 240 pounds.
So linebacker, my bad, or running back.
Linebacker, maybe tight end.
Yeah. Did you join a fraternity in college?
Absolutely not.
How did you discover wrestling?
Well, wrestling has always been such an intricate part of my life ever since I was a child. Just being introduced to it at such a young age, I gravitated towards it, and it was always something that I loved, and it never went away. Maybe a brief period of my life it was not prevalent, and it wasn't on the forefront of my mind, which is probably when I was playing college football, just because I was preoccupied with different things. But it's always been a major, major part of my life.
So what local promotions did you watch when you were growing up?
None. I didn't watch any independent wrestling growing up. I wasn't really even too familiar with it. Even when I first started getting into professional wrestling, I thought it was straight to the top, straight to television. I was sadly mistaken, and I had to learn that there are these independent shows that happen that you have to cut your teeth in order to get noticed.
I recently had your trainer, Paul Roma, on the show. How do you describe his training philosophy?
Very old school, very psychological. He's not so much worried about getting you into shape because he expects you to come into shape, come into class in shape. That's just the way that he treated pro wrestling himself. I mean, look at him from in the 80s and 90s. He looked like a Greek god. He was always in fantastic shape. And he has that kind of self-awareness that, hey, if I can do this for myself, you can do this. That kind of attitude. So I'm not going to hold your hand to getting into shape, but I am going to teach you how to be a professional wrestler. And I was so thankful for that.
I mean, heck, the crazy thing is you look at him today and he's still in an amazing shape. I mean, he's in better shape than some of the guys you see on TV.
Oh, he's jacked. He's jacked. No doubt about that.
So why are you better than him?
That's a loaded question. I mean, that's you're trying to get me in trouble there. I'm not going to, I'm going to invoke the fifth and just,
Actually, he just Facebook messaged me about his new show that he's got something about Beyond the Truth, and this sounds really exciting. That he's
anything Paul does is extraordinary. I mean, just look at his shoot interviews on YouTube. I mean, they're classic.
So, how many times did he have you watch for class Paradise Alley?
You know, it's funny. I actually never saw it, and that is why it's named after our school. Is named after that movie, and I just never bothered to watch it.
So, what's your style of wrestling?
What's my personal favorite style of wrestling?
Yes. What do you prefer? What do you like to do in the ring? What's your style?
Well, I prefer to talk. I prefer to have the microphone in my hand, and that's not to say that I would want to be a manager or anything like that. I am a wrestler, a professional wrestler, but I feel most in control when the camera's on me and the microphone is in my hand. That is when I feel at most alive and the most powerful. In terms of in-ring style, well, I'm very, very orthodox, if that makes sense. I'm not unorthodox. I do what I need to do. I'm very fundamentally sound. I stick to the basics. I know what works for me, and there's no need for me to go out there and do a bunch of crazy things for the consumers. That's not what I do. I present myself in a different light.
So more of a technical wrestler.
You can call it technical wrestling. I mean, I stray away from the term technical wrestling because I don't know what technical wrestling is. I don't know if anybody really knows what technical wrestling is. Which would mean that you know 1,000 holds, because if that's what it means, then I'm not a technical wrestler. But if it means that you are fundamentally sound and you can do everything really well, then maybe I am. But that's why I never really use that term.
So why are you so marketable?
Well, I think it boils down to when you look at a professional wrestler, if you were going to build him from the ground up, how would you make him? And what attributes would be necessary in order for him to be the forefront of a company, right? We'll use Major League Wrestling as an example. And, why am I so prominently, quote-unquote, pushed? Why am I so promoted heavily by Major League Wrestling? That's because of the marketability behind me. And what I bring to the table from a presentation standpoint, both physically and then an articulation standpoint, mentally, and how I can do media. So there's so many different variables that go into what makes a wrestler, quote-unquote, marketable. And there's a lot of boxes that you need to check, and I feel like there is no box I leave unchecked.
So why is Major League Wrestling the best promotion in the world currently?
Well, it's exactly what is in the title, and that is Major League Wrestling Fusion. So MLW Fusion, that airs every single week, is truly a fusion of all different styles of professional wrestling. So we have Lucha Libre, we have Classic, we have Hardcore, we have Deathmatch, we have Tag Team, we have everything that you could possibly want within an hour, and we also have fantastic storylines that go along with everything, and well thought out plans, and it's really not very start and stop. We do things with a purpose, and any consumer who watches MLW is instantaneously hooked. And they go out and they tweet that more people need to watch MLW, and it's the truth.
So where can people watch MLW?
Well, MLW just released that they have signed an agreement with DAZN, D-A-Z-N, which is basically like the Netflix of sports, which is a huge publication for us and a massive media outlet for more eyeballs to get into our product. Other than that, you can watch us on YouTube for free every single week. We're on BN Sports on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. We're on Fight TV. We're international programming, so there's so many different ways that consumers can watch Major League Wrestling.
So who is the Dynasty?
Well, the Dynasty, on paper, of course, is Richard Holliday, Alexander Hammerstone, Gina Medina, and never to be forgotten, Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
So obviously you miss him, I would guess.
Oh, of course. I love Maxwell. He's the founding father of the Dynasty. Does the Dynasty push on and move forward? 100%. But, he's on the Mount Rushmore, and that's for sure.
So do you blame my previous guest, Mance Warner, for the loss of MJF?
Well, I partially blame him, and especially blame Major League Wrestling's brass for even putting Maxwell in that position. They know what kind of star he is and what he brings to the table. And you put him in an empty arena match against Mance Warner. I mean, clearly the favor is in Mance Warner because Maxwell didn't have the overwhelming amount of cheers that he gets from the audience to push him through. And Mance, of course, gets no reaction anyway. So for him to wrestle in silence was just another day at the office for him. So it really wasn't fair at all.
So congratulations on your long-term contract. How long of a contract is it for MLW?
So we have extended it a few extra years. I don't know the exact. I believe it's 2023, sometime into that range. And I'm excited for the future. They're excited to have me, and it's going to be a beautiful relationship for both parties.
Sounds like it. So should we expect to see the Dynasty around the entire time, or is that just a short-term thing?
I don't think that there's anything short-term about the Dynasty. I think it was so impactful in our first year, and it's still, in my opinion, growing. And I think we've only scratched the surface of what we can do. So I believe that MLW is at least hoping that the Dynasty is here for the long term, and I believe that the Dynasty thinks that we're going to be in it for the long term as well. So I wouldn't put a short-term stamp on that.
Now, I'm confused on the different titles MLW has, because I understand you're the Caribbean champion. Is that part of MLW, or is that an additional title?
Well, I prefer the pronunciation Caribbean, and if we're being honest, we're still waiting on MLW to recognize my Caribbean championship as being a legitimate MLW title. Now, I've brought so much honor and prestige to that championship that it is probably the most talked about thing in all of Major League Wrestling right now. I can't do an interview without somebody bringing up the Caribbean Championship. And that's all due in part to the success that I've brought to it and the light that I've brought to it. You know, when Savio Vega had it, it was basically just a hunk of metal. But now that I have it, it is the talk of the town. So it would really do MLW some good justice to make that legitimate championship.
Exactly. So it's up to them to incorporate that into their lineup of championships. You would be okay if they extended that offer to you?
Well, be okay with that. I'm fighting tooth and nail. Me and my lawyer / my father are working to the bone to try and get this pushed across and get this paperwork signed. I don't know what's taking court so long. I understand that he just signed something with days in. But geez, I mean, it's been on the table for so long now.
Does MLW know what its next event is? Its next big show?
Unfortunately, we don't. We had two scheduled shows for July that we had to push back, and you know, the league is doing the best to put safety first of the athletes and the staff of MLW. So it is what it is at this point. We're at the mercy of certain states and regulations and what is allowed to happen and capacity limits, because we don't want to do empty arena shows. That's something that we don't want to do.
I agree with you. Yeah, it just seems tacky. It doesn't really have the feel. It doesn't have the experience that your fans are looking for.
No, it doesn't. So, you know, we have to work around that. And I believe that we are being very innovative in terms of, you know, the programming that we're putting out there on a weekly basis with MLW Pulp Fusion and some different things where everybody's staying relevant. So it's a give and take. We have to just kind of roll with the punches here.
So when things get back to normal, who are you going to give a shot to for the Caribbean title?
Well, I did an interview earlier today, and I mentioned that I don't know what I need to do to make this championship legitimate. So I put on the air for the world to hear that I will do Caribbean Championship open challenges to anybody within the industry who wants to come and challenge me for this championship. And I don't know if I have to defeat X amount of superstars in order to make this legitimate, but if that's what I have to do, I will do it. Because this is a legitimate championship. I am a legitimate champion, and it deserves to be defended that way. I'm a fighting champion.
Sounds great. Before we let you go, tell us one more time where people can watch MLW and, of course, your all's website.
Well, consumers can watch MLW on Days In, which is a recently acquired deal within MLW. If you have a subscription, then we're right there for you. And if not, go ahead and subscribe to that. You can find us on YouTube for free. You can find us on BN Sports. And then, more importantly, where you can find me is at Most Marketable on Instagram and Twitter. ProWrestlingTees.com. Go ahead and type in Richard Holliday. There's 2 great designs up there. And then if you go to MLWShop.com, the brand new Rarefied Air T-shirt is available, as well as the Dynasty Coffee T-shirt. And, of course, what I drink my morning coffee out of every single morning, the Dynasty Coffee mug available for purchase.
Sounds great. Thank you, Richard Holliday, for joining us today.
Much appreciated.